Welcome back to Formula One Espresso News. This is, of course, a news show brought to you by Coffee Corner Motorsport, Full Beans, the podcast, where that's me, Terry, I bring you all the latest from the paddock to the podcast via the comfy surroundings of my shed. And what have I got in store for you this week? We're going to be talking about the Spanish Grand Prix and, of course, those flashpoints, what happened. And we're just going to be talking about Valtteri Bottas and his latest interview that he gave to, I believe it was Formula One over the past week or so, which talked about Cadillac, talked about various other options and just what's in store for Valtteri Bottas, which will lead us nicely into the second seat, that is Red Bull, that I seem to be forever talking about. And, of course, the latest that we've got from the world of Formula One, including a special anniversary for Coffee Corner Motorsport, because we are celebrating 3 years this week of Coffee Corner Motorsport. Yep, that's 3 years of coffee drinking, daily headlines, and everything else that's gone into this wild and wacky journey. So you got me for 30 minutes. I'm going to hit the intro in a second, so that's enough time for you to grab your coffee or your tea or whatever beverage that you like to listen to this podcast on, or just turn it up if you're in the car. And yeah, let's give it some full beans. Okay, Spanish Grand Prix. We had a great experience. We went to Silverstone for a watch party through Silverstone Racing Club. We've been doing these events now for a couple of years now. It is a paid event. It's not something we're invited to. You buy your membership and then you get the opportunity to go to events like this. So this is one that wasn't sponsored in any way, wasn't given to us in any way. It's something that I enjoy doing. I enjoy watching a race for Dad. I feel that sometimes it's really good to unplug and go watch a Grand Prix. After the triple header, it kind of felt like it was needed. I love bringing content to everybody. It's been, like I said at the intro, it's been 3 years now of Coffee Corner Motorsport, and I absolutely love the community we brought. Sometimes you just need to just unplug those. Sometimes it's good to just go, do you know what? I'm going to put my phone on Do Not Disturb, and I'm going to go back and watch it as I enjoy watching it as a fan, which is exactly what we did last weekend at Silverstone. So we went to the wing, which is obviously, looks a lot different to what it does on a Formula One race weekend. We've never been in the Paddock Club, but I have seen pictures. And yeah, it looks amazing, obviously, a race weekend. It's a big open space when it's not a Formula One weekend. And they put a giant screen on, a couple of TV screens. They have racing simulators. They have food there. They had drinks there. With our ticket, you got your food included. You just bought your drinks. You got sim racing where they had competitions. They had quizzes. And it's just a really cool way to go watch a Grand Prix at Silverstone. They had some race on in the background, just some track days that was happening, which was quite good to go and watch that as well. And there's just a vibe about being at Silverstone. We're 4 weeks out away from the British Grand Prix now, and it kind of builds the excitement up. And I enjoy all the events there. So obviously the Hilton do watch parties. They were also having one on the rooftop, I believe, for the Spanish Grand Prix as well. So we can see that happening. And again, another great venue to have them. So I do recommend that if you are someone who enjoys watching Formula One with a group of people, I've always had an amazing time there, meeting people, chatting to people, and just, seeing fellow-minded race fans enjoying Formula One races. F1 Arcade we've been to, and we've been to a couple of factory ones as well. So if you do get an opportunity, I'd really recommend them, especially if you just want to get out and just enjoy racing again, which sometimes is good to do. So I went with Dad. Dad loved it. He always loves going back to Silverstone. It's very much one of his happy places, that's for sure. We were just commenting on the way down in the car that, 3 years ago, we'd never been to Silverstone, and we're well into double figures for trips to Silverstone now, and not taking anything away. Each time we go, it kind of, is a bit of a nostalgia feeling. Silverstone was our real first big event we went to when I bought Dad tickets for the British Grand Prix, and we kind of went to the Grand Prix, and Silverstone managed to organise a paddock tour for us. And for a first race weekend, it was just up there special. And people keep asking me my favourite Grand Prix. We've been to Silverstone a few times now. We've been to Las Vegas. We've been to Barcelona. And they've all had really different features and really different strengths. But for me, home is where the heart is, as they say, and Silverstone is where that is. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And we have booked a Grand Prix for later on this year. I'm not going to tell you where. I'm going to leave you all to try and decide where. But Dad and I have booked to go away. It's Dad's 70th birthday this year, so we celebrate it in style. And one of the things I love about Formula One is going to experience new things. And I lived in Vegas last year, lived in Barcelona, so we are flying off somewhere. It gives you a clue that it's not a European one. And we are going to celebrate a race and Dad's 70th birthday later on this year. In true fashion, we haven't sorted out tickets. We're doing exactly like we did for Vegas. Now, for those who followed the podcast last year, you'll know that what we did for Vegas was we booked our flights, we booked our hotel, and then we kind of waited until, not last minute, that'd be the wrong way, but near the time to book our race tickets, because we realised that actually we could save money. Like most people, money doesn't go on trees. So for us, it's a good cost-effective way. The trip we're going on later on this year, we spread into monthly payments. That brings the cost right down. So we've booked with a travel company, and we're paying on a monthly payment plan. So it allows us to spread the payments. And then once we finish paying that off, we'll then use the money that we were paying that off to save to actually go and enjoy the race and buy some race tickets. So that's how we're doing it. It means that we're missing out probably on a third Grand Prix this year. But last year we had the opportunity to do the paddock. So we weren't intending to go to Barcelona last year. But when the opportunity for the paddock came up, it was just too good an opportunity to miss. So we kind of just jumped on that one, but it was an unscheduled one. So as it stands this year, we'll be doing Silverstone and one other. So yeah, drop in the comments where you think that we're heading off to. Because it'd be really interesting to see where people think that our travels are going to take us this year. But super looking forward to that one. Super looking forward to Silverstone in 4 weeks' time as well. So hopefully bringing you some great content from there, and also bringing you some surprises along the way. But yeah, going back to the Spanish Grand Prix. One flashpoint: Max Verstappen and George Russell. Was it deliberate? Was it not deliberate? My personal opinion is I think it was deliberate. I think it was a very red mist ascended over Max, and the collision itself was pretty deliberate. I know there's been various sort of clips going on where people are saying, well, he didn't deliberately steer into him, blah, blah, blah. If you look at just Max's actions, the way he slowed in that, it's pretty self-explanatory what he did. And yeah, Max's supporters would always come out and defend him, and likewise George's supporters would come out and defend him, and we're always going to get that. I think undeniably the stewards made the right call in saying that it was definitely something that needed penalising. I've said all week long, I stand by this, I don't think that the 10 seconds penalty was enough. I don't think it should have been disqualification. I think pure and simple, if you look back to the last race out in Monaco where George was deliberately breaking the rules and got a drive-through penalty on the basis of he was deliberately breaking the rules, I think you can apply the same logic to Max's one and say that he should have received the same penalty and got a drive-through penalty. That would have taken him out the points completely. That kind of feels like it would have been a punishment deserving of the crime, as in he got no points at all. I think disqualifications, yes, he shouldn't have done it. Not for 1 minute am I condoning what he did. I can understand why he did it though, and I did an article on this over on the website. Shameless plug for www.coffeecornermotorsport.com. Massive amount of support going on over there. Truly, I can't thank you enough for the amount of support that's gone on there. Yes, there's been some criticism because you know what? We talk about subjects that are emotive. We talk about online abuse. We talk about Max Verstappen and media bias. We talk about all the things that some of the mainstream articles either don't go into in enough detail for my liking or shy away from because of the controversy that comes with them. So with that will always be a degree of criticism. With that will always be a degree of people standing up for their driver. I understand that. I accept that. And I know that once some of these posts and articles go up, that's invariably what's going to happen. So I'm kind of okay with that, if I'm honest. People will say it's great for engagement, so they say just laugh it off, Terry. For me personally, I think it's about, as a community, I think it's really important we talk about some of these things like the online abuse that's going on, because whatever happened with Max and George, it should have stopped at the track with the penalty. It shouldn't keep spilling over into this social media just on charge with abuse at people, and it's getting out of hand. And I think I've been asked this question, is it something that's always been there? And I think to a degree, yes. I just think that with the way social media has risen, obviously, and the accessibility has risen and faceless accounts have risen, I think there's a lot more now because it's more accessible to actually get your view out there, and also for that view to be seen by everybody and to be shared and to potentially be liked. And then in that way, it then becomes the sort of, the norm, because that's what the algorithm likes, because it sees people engaging with it and sends it across. And I think all of these factors play a massive part in the abuse. Do I think it's got worse? It's very hard to tell whether it's got worse or not, whether it's not because it's in our face now as such. The one thing I will say is faceless accounts and social media make it really hard to clamp down on. And until these big social media companies do something about that, it will always happen. Because ultimately, if you can make an account up without a face, without a name, without any accountability, yes, that account might get banned, but if you can just make up a Google Mail account and just make a new account up within 10 minutes and be back online hurling the same abuse out, that person will never get any accountability. There will never be any acceptability for their actions, because they will just go, well, I'll just go onto Gmail, open up a new account, put on a new profile picture or even just a screenshot, something, and bang, off I go again. It happens all the time, and various posts that I put up also get it. There are subjects that are more emotive. You know that when you put them up. It actually makes you shy away from something, if I'm honest. There are some times when you go to record a video where you go, do you know what? do I need the hassle that I know is going to come from the comments, which is really wrong, because if something's happened that you should feel the need to talk about, you should be able to talk about it. But there are certain occasions where I do think twice about what I'm writing, what I'm posting, in a lot more than what I normally would. And people who know me know that I like to express an opinion. I like to encourage debate. One of the things I love about the Coffee Corner Motorsport community is that we debate things. This has never been about me being right. It's been about me actually opening up the community so that we can have a conversation. And you know what? There's some great conversations that go on where actually people make me change my mind and go, do you know what? Yeah, my opinion was this, but actually there's some really good points in there, and you make me think differently on this. And that's what it was all about. But you can have those conversations whilst being respectful. You don't need to criticize someone. I saw someone on my page was literally telling someone earlier today how they should watch Formula One and how they only watch it for X, Y, Z. And you know what? You can't do that. People will watch for various reasons. There is a fan base out there. Some people like the cars. Some people like the sponsorship deals. Some people like the merch. Some people like the racing. Some people like the drivers. That is a fact of life. It's like when you buy a car, for example. Not everyone buys a car based on one thing. People will buy it on a variety of things, value for money, what the car looks like, performance, all these factors in. That's what makes us individual. That's what makes us really special in terms of, having a difference of opinion, because we don't need to have the same opinion. No one's saying that. But what we do need to do is actually be respectful whilst we're debating those things. Now, I know social media can come across as being really short. Sometimes when I post a comment back, I think, has that been perceived the right way? There's lots of character limitations when you write something back and you're, oh, actually, has someone read that the wrong way? My dad always used to say to me that, you can read a text or a message very differently to when you're listening to someone talk and hearing the tone of their voice. And he's absolutely right with that. It's something that plays in the back of my mind quite a lot. So I think for me that everyone has responsibility, but I think that the big social media companies have a massive responsibility to start, literally checking who's opening these accounts and what they're doing, because having times of people reporting an account and within a few minutes back, something's come back with, now we don't find that abusive. And you look at it going, really? Because that's really abusive. And it happens, the checks on them are normally automated. It's not done correctly. So for me, it's a massive problem. But the race itself, I think we were robbed of a great finale. I think that lots of criticism over Red Bull's strategy, but actually, if you look at Red Bull's three-stop strategy, without the safety car, Max would have been in the hunt for a good podium, potentially second place, and it would have really took the battle to the McLaren. So I do think that Red Bull actually made the right call on the strategy up until the safety car. When the safety car happened, they only had the hard tyres. That's where they should have left him out on the soft tyres and let him just defend his position. They would have warmed up quicker. They weren't that worn. I think someone said, is it 8-9 laps maybe maximum? I don't know, so don't quote me on that one. But they weren't really old soft tyres, so I think he possibly could have gone to the end on that set of softs he had, especially with McLaren taking the gamble to double stack. They saw that McLaren were double stacking, so they had that option to leave Max out as well. There was enough room to see what they were doing. I think that Red Bull thought that they were going to bring one McLaren in and leave the other one out. I think that's why they counted it. I think they were hoping for second place, if I'm honest. I think they thought they'd bring Oscar in, leave Lando out, bring Max in. Max comes out behind Lando on old tyres, or comes out behind Oscar. Oscar gets past Lando as such, who would have had the track position because he hadn't pitted. And then Max would have also had the fresher tyres, even though they're hard, to try and get past Lando on the older tyres. I think that's, in my head, how I saw that McLaren strategy playing out, or sorry, that Red Bull strategy playing out. I was surprised they double stacked. You would have seen the photo of me at Silverstone, literally just going, for those who listen on podcasts, that makes no sense because I just did a pose. But if you're watching on the YouTube video, you'll see that. But yeah, and for me, it was a bold move. They weren't as close as they weren't as far away as what you'd expect. So it was very risky. If something happened, they would have been in trouble. But ultimately, it paid off, and brilliant 1-2 for McLaren. The Charles Leclerc Max Verstappen incident on the restart, I think it was half a dozen 1/6 of another. I don't think it was a penalty. I think they were both not given position. What you got to bear in mind is on the straight, who gives position on the straight? It's a big debate, isn't it? It's not a corner, so there's no apex. So what you rule is giving position. If you're side by side, who does give position? Because ultimately, when that contact was made, it was halfway down the straight. It was on the corner. There's no apex. There's no first to the corner. There's no way of looking at it that way. So how do you register who is in the lead and who should give them the space? We know that on a restart, it's the same as the first lap incident. The stewards are always going to take a much more, holistic approach because it's a restart, so they tend to do that. So I think from that point of view, that sort of penalty not given from Charles Leclerc was probably the right call for me. With regards to the place swapping from Red Bull, I heard a comment from Christian Horner saying about how he misses the days when the FIA used to ask or used to tell the teams to give the place back or they're going to issue a penalty. I quite like the onus being on the teams in one way, but I get from Chris's point of view, as a team principal, you want the FIA to tell you what's going on or whether or not you should give that pace back. That played a massive part into Max and what was going on. Max didn't think he should have given the pace back. Ultimately, he was right as well because the stewards agreed with Max. And again, that frustration, that red mist is obviously a factor in what happened with George, because ultimately you've got him going, oh, you don't have to give the pace back. You have to move over for him. Max is like, I don't have to, I don't want to. And bang, lo and behold, you've then got this problem there where Max has got the red mist because he's being told to give a pace back that he thinks that he shouldn't have to. He would probably think that anyway, let's be honest. Max is ultra competitive. Asking him to give a pace back is not something that I'm sure his race engineer enjoys doing. But ultimately, Max was right. According to the stewards report, he didn't need to give the pace back to George. We would have probably solved all of that issue anyway. So, for me, it's one of those where all these champions, all these multiple world champions seem to have this red mist that they can descend into. Schumacher, Senna, Prost, all of them have had it. Hamilton even. They've all got it. And when I look at Lewis after that sort of press conference after the Barcelona Grand Prix, it kind of feels that's what's missing from Lewis. That almost arrogance that he's the best in the world. When he was winning with Mercedes, he had that arrogance that said, I was the best in the world. I am a multiple world champion. He looks like he's lost that confidence at the moment. He looks like since his modern era of Formula 1, since 2021, new era's come in, he's not been successful. It seems like the doubts are creeping in. Lewis has always been a passionate driver, don't get me wrong, but he's also always been outwardly self-confident of his abilities. He may not have been behind the scenes, but now we're seeing that creep into the press, creep into the media in terms of how he talks about the race and what he talks about going on. And I think that could also be one of Lewis's biggest challenges that he's facing is that ability to tune into that. I am a 7-time world champion. And I know people come in and go, no, he's 8, or no, he's 6. He's not, he's 7. The history facts say he's 7. You don't need to have that debate to make this point at all. Ultimately, he is a 7-time world champion. Max is a 4-time world champion. And I think all of these top drivers who win multiple world championships have this air of almost arrogance to them. Almost like they can never be in the wrong. And I think with Lewis, he's kind of lost that. And I think that's what he needs to discover more than anything. I think that's some of the reason behind Angela coming back, in the hope that she can help rediscover that side of things. People talk about Lando. I love the fact that Lando talks about how he's feeling. I love the fact that Lando talks about the challenges that he faces. But I think a lot of people will also say that that's the one thing that's probably stopping Lando going to that next level, which is quite an interesting debate either way, because should drivers open up about it and be open and honest about it, or should they actually be more reserved about it and keep that to close quarters and friends and team and that side of things? You've got to applaud the drivers who actually stand up and talk about it. But then the other drivers will use that as a weakness. These drivers do everything they can to win. So ultimately, they will use every opportunity they can. They will see everything as a chink in the armour and a chance to get one up, won't they? And the other flashpoint is, of course, Lance Stroll. I've done lots and lots on Lance Stroll, so I'm not going to debate too much into it. Something clearly aggravated his wrist. Now, there's lots to talk about whether or not he punched all like the Incredible Hulk through his helmet, as Croft has suggested. His race team is saying that nothing happened. They're saying it's an old injury to come back up. Aston Martin have came out and been a bit cagey about it. Lance himself has been completely quiet. We don't know what procedure he's had. We don't know whether or not he's going to be in Canada or not. We don't know whether Felipe's racing in Le Mans or not. It's all a bit of a hot mess, really, isn't it? Ultimately, Lance has clearly aggravated an old injury. Some way or another. We can debate how, where, what, when. We don't know the facts. We haven't seen the footage, either one of us. So if I sit here and say it wasn't because of this, I'm sure somebody will say it's because of this. So ultimately, Lance withdrew from the race due to an injury to his wrist. He stayed in Barcelona. He sought medical attention from the person who did the original operation on that wrist. And what we don't know is the outcome of that. There's been a procedure happen, but we haven't had anything confirmed by Lance, by Aston Martin. No timelines, no scale of what the injury was, no scale of what any procedure was. So we have literally zero to go on. Obviously, I'll try and keep my ear to the ground and see what I can find out as and when it happens as such. Replacement-wise, I'm pretty certain it's going to be Felipe Drugovich if Lance can't race. Lots to talk about other options. Van Dorn is doing, obviously, Le Mans as well. Valtteri Bottas was an outside bet, but there's no prior agreement in place, so I don't see that one happening. And I think ultimately, with Vesti also doing Le Mans for Cadillac, sorry. So Vesti is doing Le Mans for Cadillac, which is ironically, I think, the same car as what Drugovich is supposed to be racing as well. So they ain't going to want to lose two drivers, are they? So Mercedes ain't going to be able to recall Vesely from that point of view as well. So I think from what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, Valtteri is on call to be Mercedes reserve driver, which therefore he wouldn't be technically free to do the Aston Martin role. And Drugovich has got in his contract, and Lawrence is willing to just break whatever he needs to in terms of paying off Cadillac for that drive. And will that affect any chance of a Formula 1 drive for Felipe Drugovich? I'm pretty sure that's probably what's on the back of his mind. And that brings us nicely into, obviously, Valtteri Bottas and his interview that he's given. And I'm not sure if this is a podcast or a combination of a podcast and media. I think he did a Formula 1 interview with Lawrence as well. So it's quite clear that Valtteri has been doing a bit of a media tour. He talked about next season. He's talked about how he feels that he can bring what Cadillac need. He's also talked about the Red Bull second seat and how he feels he can bring Red Bull what they need. I said last season, I actually think that Red Bull are a bit wild not going for Valtteri. I think he'd be the perfect foil for Max, if I'm honest. He kind of fits the Red Bull brand in terms of his personality as well. It's a wild move, but it's one I'd like to see. I don't think Yuki's going to go for the rest of this season. It's quite interesting to listen to Christian talking about Yuki. How we got to give Yuki time. Yeah, ironically, he's had three times as many chances as Liam Lawson, who got binned off and sent to VCAR. But I suppose, we've got to give Yuki time, especially with a 10 million plus payment, Honda paying for the rest of the season, haven't we? Interesting sort of mindset from Christian Horner and how he approaches that. But ultimately, Yuki's paid into that Red Bull seat. In terms of, Max's ban, do I think he's going to get a ban? No, but then I also don't think that Max will change the way he drives either. I think that Max is just that sort of driver. I can't see him for 1 minute being reserved or thinking twice about something. I think Max will just do what Max wants to do, and if there's a consequence, he will deal with it. So there is a possibility of a ban. If that happens, I can see them promoting Hasher backup. Sorry, promoting Hasher up, not backup. So promoting Isaac up to take on that second Red Bull seat, and then that will leave a straight swap between Iwaza and obviously Lindblad if they can get the actual dispensation through from the FIA, which is due to meet next week. At next week's World Motorsport Council, going completely off topic, the calendar is going to be ratified and out. I have got the calendar, I have got the dates, but as they've not been ratified, I haven't put them out because I don't want people booking holidays and hotels and travel based on a provisional plan. So apologies for that. I'm just very conscious that as soon as I put something out that says this is the 2026 calendar dates, people might rush off and book something, and there might be a very last minute change. And there are some notable changes. Canada is moving to go behind Miami now, so in May. Monaco is moving slightly to go into beginning of June now rather than the end of May. So that's got a slight week. That obviously doesn't clash with Indy 500 either, so that's a win-win for that. Certainly if you're Zach Brown, as I said before. And also, if you look at Australia, that's going to be season opener as well. So I can give you those hints. And the back end of the season, which is, of course, that triple header, is remaining the same, which is, of course, Las Vegas, Qatar, and then, of course, Abu Dhabi being the final race of the season. And Madrid is also due to come online at the beginning of, I want to say September, off the top of my head. So there's some dates in there which you can sort of work around. We have obviously got the last race for the Dutch Grand Prix. The Imola is gone, and that's what Madrid is replacing. And then we haven't seen what's coming the following year. We know that Spa's starting to go on rotation soon, etc., etc. So expect some announcements towards tracks, or at least one new track coming towards the back end of this year, ready for 2027, because obviously we lose the Dutch Grand Prix. So we are going to need a replacement for that one. So I'm fully expecting a replacement for that one. We have got some contracts coming up. Austria, I believe, is coming towards an end. Austin is another one, I believe, coming towards an end. So we expect to see some movement on those, but they normally announce those as we go into race weekend. Wow, that's 25 minutes of me just rabbiting rubbish about last week's Spanish Grand Prix and lots and lots of things. But in terms of, obviously, Valtteri Bottas, he wants to drive next year. He talked about Cadillac. Perez is apparently in talks with Alpine as well as Cadillac, but I don't know if that's more Perez's camp just trying to get Cadillac and force them into doing a deal. We know they've obviously just announced Tommy Hilfiger as their official apparel, which is basically the merchandise launch. They're the official partner. That's the first big sponsorship we got. I don't know whether that could just be Checo's camp trying to put a bit of pressure on by almost toying with the idea of Alpine. Alpine would want Checo because of the money. Flavio apparently has got a deal with Alpine that entitles him to a percentage of sponsorship deals. So bringing Checo in makes a lot of sense, and also bringing Colapinto in makes a lot of sense. If Flavio Briatore is getting a cut of any marketing commercial deal that Alpine get, which kind of fits with what I've been saying for quite a while about the Flavio deal. The Alpine board or the Renault board have refused to say what his deal is and how much he's getting paid. There's been lots of French media speculating about it. The latest one I've seen is that he's got a set fee of a couple of million as an advisor, as in terms of a yearly salary, and then 20% of any commercial deals that he personally negotiates. Now, that would kind of fit nicely with obviously Franco coming in. It would also fit nicely with a Mercedes engine supply deal. It would also fit nicely with obviously news of him talking to Checo about a possibility of a 2026 race seat as well, if he's getting a nice cut of that sort of deal. So I can totally see that as being, pretty much a good fact on that one. Other contract things I've seen, I saw a really weird one about Mercedes. It looked like it was shared from a fan page, so I haven't really paid too much attention. But they said that Kimi Antonelli was going to be given a contract extension because he's got it in the contract that if Mercedes are fourth, he can get a 3-year extension. I'm not quite sure where that comes from, because what a rubbish contract bit of negotiation from Mercedes if that's the case. I mean, if Mercedes are below fourth, they've got a massive problem, haven't they? More than likely, there's a points thing where if Kimi reaches a certain amount of points, then it's triggered automatically. Or it will be in there that, like I've been saying for quite a while, that Mercedes had the option always to extend Kimi anyway. He was on a long-term contract, but there was a get-out clause, basically, that could have been triggered, but it looks like they're certainly happy with Kimi. George, I keep going back to, if it will depend on Max. I still think Max is going to see another year at Red Bull. I think he'll see the start of the new regulations and see what the new engines like with Ford and with Red Bull powertrains. So I think that they will give George an extension, and that George will be announced after the summer break. But I think that relies on when Max says no to Toto, as I've said for quite a while on the podcast. But Valtteri, in terms of what he wants to do, he wants to basically have a seat back no matter what that takes. So he's looking at Cadillac. He's probably looked at Alpine, but I'm not hearing much talk of it, if I'm honest. And then he's also, he's told Red Bull that he could do a job in that second Red Bull seat. And I kind of agree with him, if I'm honest. I find myself sort of thinking, actually, would that give Isaac time to grow? I mean, could you imagine that? You then look at potentially, I mean, if you're Liam Lawson fan, you might want to listen away now, but you then have Max Verstappen and Valtteri Bottas in the main Red Bull team, and you'd have Isaac Hadjar and Arvid Lindblad in the VCARB team for next year. That is a partnership, or two partnerships, I would like to see on the Formula 1 grid. In terms of Cadillac, I still think Perez is going to get one of those seats. Colton Herta talk, that's going off the ball a bit. So that then brings the likes of Joe back into the frame, doesn't it? It brings likes of, do they bring someone else into the mix? Do they go with two established drivers? Very similar to like when Haas joins, they tried to get two experienced drivers to build them up and give them feedback. That is an option for, obviously, Cadillac. They will want the sponsorship money that goes with that, which is why I still think Checo's into it. For me, I think Checo and one other, but I am genuinely unsure. I've said Herta for a while, but now I'm starting to kind of think the noise I'm hearing, plus the issue against super license points, could we have a Perez-Bottas partnership? Certainly wouldn't be by all means on a 1-year deal anything bad in terms of Cadillac. A lot of experience there, a lot of feedback there, both multiple race winners. Both got commercial elements. Obviously, Checo's got a massive commercial following and backing. Valtteri's got a very social media side that would help your team if you're a new team trying to bring new fans across to your team as well. So, actually, not unheard of. Could we be seeing Bottas and Perez at Cadillac? Let me know your thoughts on that one. I'm really interested to know who you think is going to get the second seat, or even any seat at Cadillac. That's pretty much all I got for this week. I didn't want to dwell too much onto the Max incident. I think there's been talked about it. I wanted to touch a bit on the abuse online because I feel it's wrong. I feel that it needs looking at. I just don't know how, if I'm honest. And I just wanted to just open up a bit about Valtteri Bottas and what the future looks like for him, because it seems to be coming back into the frame now as we head into the summer. So, yeah, all of that in mind. Like I said at the start of the show, just wanted to say a massive thank you. Coffee Corner Motorsport is 3 years old now. We're up to over 40,000 followers on social media. We've just hit over 1,000 YouTube subscriptions. So a massive thank you to everyone who's managed to pull that one out of the bag and subscribe over the course of the past few months. We started the year on about 89 YouTube subscribers. So to get to 1,000 has been absolutely a huge shout out for me. I've been working working with some people on SEO work and how to get the website out there more, how to get the YouTube channel out there more. So it doesn't involve changing the content. It involves literally getting it into the right places, which seems to have done some trick to getting some new fans on board. So it's great to see some of that hard work paying off as well. But for me personally, yeah, it's a huge thank you. I've been able to live out the last few years doing some magical things. Yeah, I've been able to help Dad do some great things, and I've been able to help Dad achieve some dreams. When we were growing up, we grew up on a council estate. We didn't have any money. He won't mind me saying he's a self-employed painter and decorator. Money was tight growing up. Typical sort of, one in, one out in terms of the parents at home and working. So when one walked through the door, the other one walked out for the door to do late nights, bar work, all that sort of thing to make ends meet and put food on the table. And we certainly never had the opportunity to do anything like Formula One and go to races and stuff like that. So this channel, when I picked up that cup of coffee 3 years ago, has enabled me to do that. And I've only been able to do that because everybody out there has embraced Coffee Corner Motorsport, embraced me as a person, and supported us along the way. So genuinely a thank you from me, because the stuff I've managed to do, the memories I've managed to create have been pretty amazing, to be honest. And I never for 1 minute believed that when I picked up that cup of coffee 3 years ago, made that first video, that would be where we are today. But here we are, podcast, YouTube, all these channels that have grown, all these conversations we have, live shows, all of these things that we've done, multiple races now have been amazing. Met some amazing people, not just amazing people as in, Formula One world champions and stuff like that, but some amazing community people, some great friendships that have been made from this channel. So it's been one of the absolute blasts I've had for 3 years. Whilst it is hard work, I will always say that. I will never deny that. It's also been thoroughly enjoyable. And I've always said that whilst I enjoy creating content, I will carry on creating content. So I'm not going absolutely nowhere soon. Amazing support, amazing community, and from me and probably from Dad as well, a huge thank you for helping us live out some of our dreams and for helping us make some amazing memories, because without you listening, sharing, liking, commenting, all of those things, none of it's possible. And I genuinely don't forget that. And I hope that you've seen what a difference it's made to us personally. So yeah, before I get emotional and cry on a podcast, which I don't want to do, a huge thank you from me. And that is your 30 minutes up. So I'm going to take my coffee. I'm going to run back into the house, dry my eyes, and I will speak to you all next week. So yeah, Canada, let's bring it on, because cold weather means Mercedes might be back.